So, hi everyone, and welcome back to another Sunday Zoom meeting. And we have been motoring our way through the miracle principles. And I think last week we left off on miracle principle number 13. And so this week we will get started and we'll do about a half dozen miracle principles, starting at 14. And the same as the last 2 weeks, what we'll do is we'll have a chat about the miracle principle, and then we'll open up that for anyone who would like to ask some questions or have some clarity around it before we move on to the next one. And then I promise I'll leave a little bit more time than last week to deal with more general, specific questions related to the course or forgiveness. So just when we're dealing with the miracle principles, please keep the questions related to the miracle principle that we're on. Okay, so without further ado, let's begin. So our first miracle principle today is miracle principle 14, and it says, miracles bear witness to truth. They are convincing because they arise from conviction. Without conviction, they deteriorate into magic, which is mindless and therefore destructive, or rather the uncreative use of mind. The first thing to be aware of is the language Jesus uses. Like, for example, in this miracle principle, he says, miracles bear witness to truth. So the miracle is not the truth. It is a reflection of truth. But so what it's saying is it bears witness to truth. So again, the miracle and forgiveness are illusions because they're still happening within consciousness. Jesus calls the miracle or forgiveness the final illusion. And so again, he's just making it clear in miracle number 14 that miracles bear witness to truth. They would reflect the truth of heaven, but they are not the truth of heaven, because you don't need miracles in heaven. The miracle or forgiveness is a correction, and nothing needs correction in heaven. We need it within the dream, only as long as the dream lasts. So that's the first thing to note about miracle principle number 14. Let's have a look there. Well, let's see. They bear witness to truth. Forgiveness, it's the reflection of oneness. You know, in the Course, Jesus, every so often he goes into a little bit of detail about what it's like in heaven and what creation is. And then as soon as he's given us a few sentences, he says, but you can't understand that with a dualistic mind. You know, he can't even put it into words with dualistic words. And so he doesn't really talk about how creation works in heaven in order that we would understand it. Rather, he talks about it so that we can reflect heaven here. In the Course, Jesus says that forgiveness is an earthly form of love. So it's not love, but it's the reflection of love in the dream. Okay, so that's what we would say about the beginning of that. In the same way, Jesus would talk about, holy relationships. When we give over our special relationships to the Holy Spirit, that they become the holiest things on earth. They are the precursor to eternity. They're not eternity, they're the precursor to eternity. They would reflect eternity, where they would reflect the oneness of God. So that's really what we're saying there. So they are convincing because they arise from conviction, and without conviction, they deteriorate into magic. So conviction would be trust and faith that the Holy Spirit is right and that we are wrong. If we talk about them deteriorating into magic, magic is trying to change the images. It's trying to change the world. The miracle is about changing our mind about the world. And that change of mind is that it isn't real. It's just images that we made up, and they're playing in front of the light of Christ that we are. So let's see if we take an example. So if my body is sick, well, if it seems to me, if I believe my body is sick, then really it's my mind that's sick because I think I'm a body. And the body can't be sick because there is no body. Just like there's nothing wrong with the world because there is no world. The only place that we require correction is in our mind. And the mind's decision for guilt and separateness, or separateness and guilt. Probably a better way of saying it. So we've made the decision for separateness and for our guilt. And therefore we project that out and see it in the world or in our body. And so the miracle is always bringing us back from the world into our mind, where real correction can take place. It's not about getting up with an eraser in front of the movie screen and trying to change the images that are there. The world that was over long ago. It's about stepping back into our mind. So, so really the faith is that we have to understand that the insane voice talking to itself in our mind is wrong about everything. The insane voice in my mind thinks it's a body, thinks it was born in a certain year on a certain date. It thinks it was born to other bodies who made it, and it thinks it is in a world, all of which the Course tells us doesn't exist. So there's nothing actually happening here. It's just images. It's just a movie. But the voice in my head tells me it's very real. And it tells me I'm a me, tells me I'm this little separated self surrounded by other little separated selves. And it is that the faith that we will be talking about in the Course is the understanding that I'm not the voice in my head. I'm something else. And we can think about that in a lot of different ways. So you will have heard people say, to use the expression, I don't know what anything is for. Brilliant. What does that do? It completely disempowers the voice in your head and everything it's saying. And if you choose against the ego, let go of the ego's hand, you are automatically holding the Holy Spirit's hand. So if you can honestly say to yourself, I don't know what anything is for, therefore I'm dropping all judgments, all ideas of what's right and wrong, all ideas about anything I think I know. Once you do that, you drop that, you connect with the sacred stillness and silence in your mind, which is the Holy Spirit, and which is you as the decision maker joined with the Holy Spirit as a non-judgmental awareness. So, you know, I like to teach the Course that you are not the insane voice talking to itself and your emotions. What you are is the awareness in behind that. You are that which can be non-judgmentally aware of the voice in your head and your emotions. But that is not either a thought or an emotion. It is a presence. And again, to fall back from that, you're withdrawing your allegiance to the voice in your head as being what you are, and you're falling back and you're joining with the stillness and silence in your mind. Another way that you'll hear people talk about it is that you ask for the correction of the Holy Spirit. But again, it's important to understand that, again, what you're saying is, I understand that everything the voice in my head is telling me is a lie. It's my ego self, my little separated self. It is my false identity. It is what I think I am that's blocking from me my awareness of my identity as Christ. And so again, what you're saying is you're asking for a correction. And so really, it doesn't matter which forgiveness process you use. It always boils down to you're not the voice in your head. That's the problem. When the decision maker makes a decision for separateness and guilt for the ego, the decision maker jumps in the movie and misidentifies with a body. So really, in miracle principle number 14, that would be the faith. That would be the conviction. Okay, and that conviction would grow the more that we ask for correction, or the more that we disregard the victim screaming in our heads for justice against the atrocities committed against it. The more we disengage from that and instead connect with being something different in our mind, the more our conviction grows. So that's what I wanted to say about that. Now, again, without conviction, they deteriorate into magic. So again, the miracle reminds me I'm not a body or the voice in my head. I am the stillness and silence with the Holy Spirit that is whole and complete. I am awareness. That's the miracle. Now, without that conviction, without that trust in the Holy Spirit that the voice in my head is wrong about everything and the Holy Spirit's right, then I'm going to go back into the world and go, but why is the body not better? Why is this person that I'm forgiving, why are they not acting nicer towards me? And then we're back into magic. We're seeking to change the world instead of changing our mind about the world. So that's what Jesus means about miracles deteriorating into magic. If I'm healed, I know I'm not a body. If I'm back looking at my body and whether it's been healed or not, I think I'm a body again. So that's where the miracle deteriorates into magic. And that's what he's talking about in miracle principle number 14. So magic is mindless and therefore destructive, or rather the uncreative use of mind. Okay, so we were created by God to be like him and to create like him. So that's our real function. But there's no creation happening in the dream. Forgiveness is my only function in the dream. Right, that is what I wanted to say about miracle principle number 14. Would anyone like to put their hand up and ask any questions or make any comments on that miracle principle?
Keith, in the chat, Florentia, she has said, I have a question. I can't stop the voice in my head. It is unstoppable. I have to be consistently vigilant not to believe it. It's hard work.
Yes, do not try to silence the voice in your head, shout down the voice in your head, smother the voice in your head, suffocate the voice in your head. What you resist persists. You cannot never, ever fall into the trap of fighting the ego. And so yes, that's a really important point, and it's a really good question, just so we can emphasize it again. The course is not about fighting your ego, because that makes it real. Instead, what it is that you get an opportunity to experience what you are by looking without judging what you are not. I get to be the stillness, aware of the movement, knowing I'm not the movement. I get to be the silence, aware of the noise, knowing I'm not the noise. I get to be the formlessness, aware of form, including information, knowing I'm not the information. So again, it's like I always say in these meetings, your job is not to choose against the Holy Spirit, the ego, and choose the Holy Spirit. It's not to choose against your wrong mind and choose your right mind. It is to bring your two minds together, to be your right mind, aware of the wrong mind without judging it. So, under normal circumstances and when we begin, we are 100% identified with the voice in our head, and we're spiritually unconscious. Our right mind is apparently not present. Now, it's always present, but it's apparently not present. At least it's veiled from us by our activity of being the wrong mind. And so, the definition of right-mindedness is looking at your wrong mind without judging it. It's not silencing the voice, stilling the voice, shouting the voice down, rejecting the voice. It's looking at the voice without judging it. And now something very different has arisen in your awareness. A non-ego presence has arisen in your awareness alongside the ego. And so now we can bring the noise to the silence. We can bring the wrong mind to the right mind. We can bring the error to the truth. But it's not our job to fix the error or fight the error or get rid of the darkness or anything like that. We only want to ever be the light of awareness, aware of the crazy voice talking to itself. And really that is what is asked of us. And then what will happen as we are the awareness of the insanity that goes on in our head, is that at some point we're going to experience, rather than being the awareness of the voice in our head, we're going to have an experience of being the awareness of awareness, aware of itself. And that will be the holy instant where there's no identification with a physical or a psychological body. But again, we don't try to choose that. That should be automatic. What we want to do is look at the darkness, and we want to look in the darkness without judging it. Now, straight away, the non-ego presence is just there. Okay. The problem is that if you stay the voice in your head going, I want to look for the right mind, or I want to look for awareness, you can't. Okay, because awareness already is. But it's not available to the insane voice talking to itself. So you must become the awareness of the voice talking to itself, and now the right mind is present. But that's the only way to be right-minded. And again, it's not about shutting up the voice in your head, it's being the non-judgmental witness to it. So I hope that makes sense there for Florencia. Where should we go next, Eli?
Okay, Fran has her hand up, but I just want to say what Marcia has quickly put in the chat. She says, Ken always told us that you can't shout down the ego with affirmations. I just thought that was Ken puts it really nicely. I like
Absolutely.
that.
Yeah. And that's the point. We can't stifle it, shove it down, shout over it, fight it, try to get rid of it, nothing like that. And again, what the point Marcia makes is really just saying that, see, if I'm trying to shout down the ego with affirmations, I'm still the ego doing something. See, the right mind doesn't have to do anything. It just is. And as soon as I'm doing anything, that's the ego. So that's the reason why Ken says that. So thanks for that, Marcia. All right, Fran, the stage is yours. You go for it.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm here at the right time. Praise God. And one of the couple things have been happening. Two words specifically here that are like synchronistic with a lot of my practice lately is commitment and faith. I'm having a different conversation in my head, and I'm learning that language in the course is not to get hung up on it,
Absolutely. Yeah.
You go I can be perfectionistic because, okay, if I to turn it over and watch with Jesus, I have to say it, like this incantation. So I've gotten rid of some of that. Mm-hmm. And it's like a prayer for my heart, here I blankly blank am Jesus, let's get to work. So this commitment and faith, the conversation kind of in my head these days is the commitment is really, okay, if I'm making a choice, I'm making a choice. Let's make a commitment to that choice. Don't sit on the fence kind of thing. And getting over this thing, well, it's kind of reducing the thing about affirmations. You can't shout it down. It's like, okay, I make a commitment to really surrendering this to the Holy Spirit, bringing it to the Holy Spirit. And then I sometimes have these visual of bringing this big rock or this big pile of crap to an altar, and Jesus is there, and I'm going, okay, here's the crap for the day or this moment, whatever. Here it is. I'm leaving this here. Now I want to see this differently. I want to be with you, and that something is deepening with that.
Good.
Before it was, as the 12 step says, acting as if, but now there's something real happening. And the conversation I'm getting is like, oh, and then the crazy voice pops in, and I'm going, hey, wait a minute. And it's like the Holy Spirit is saying, didn't you just leave that with me? Are you gonna leave it with me?
Very good.
So I'm going, oh yeah, And that whole statement about patience produces instant results.
Yes.
It's like that thing is happening, and I'm getting tears because there is something powerfully shifting
Yes.
from this practice. And this look, wait, God, I used to do this thing. I used to say with friends, okay, you pray for something, and if it gets worse, just let it be, because God's at work.
Mhm.
It's like, okay, it may look worse, but God is at work. If I've really brought this to the altar to look at with Jesus, I have made a new commitment. I have faith.
Yeah.
It's at work. I don't know what healing will look like.
Mhm.
If I stay in my head, well, healing will look like, okay, I won't need a new furnace that costs me $10,000, or I won't need, or my grandchild will have a better job, or whatever. Okay, I'm learning to get rid of that.
Yeah.
And literally, I've had, the ongoing saga of my holy relationships with my oldest grandchildren, because the ego will always bring a new form. If I think something has, quote unquote, changed in the world. I've shared a couple, but I've had some new ones. And I've been really practicing this faith. Okay, I don't know. I know it's about all this other crap. And I did pray to see it differently. And I have not been able to get back, because I go check in, I go stick my toe in the, with the alligators again. Oh, is this still bugging me? And I'm finding, no, it's not, because of this paradoxical commitment. Anyway, I just wanted to say that I'm amazed.
Yeah.
If that made any sense at all.
It did. No, it did.
I'm
No,
amazed.
and it was on point. It was on point. I mean, what I want to say is that we don't want to ask the Holy Spirit for help with our boiler, or with our family, or with our bodies, or we don't want to do that. What we want to do is we want to ask the Holy Spirit for help that we are anxious about it.
Yeah.
It always bringing it back to our minds. Yeah.
Yeah. My prayer is, Holy Spirit, open my heart and heal my mind, so that I can receive all the love the Father has for me. And, again, language, but that it's, and that thing about wanting the peace of God above all else, something is shifting. Oh, I'm going, oh my God, I really do.
Yeah.
I really do. That's the prayer. So the rest doesn't matter.
No, and I mean, and the trick is always that the instant you let go of the ego's hand, which means the instant you stop identifying as a separate self and a voice and a body, you are joined with the Holy Spirit, and love is there. And so we don't, we can say, I want the love of God. The way we do that is by looking at the decision we're making against it, which is to be a body and an insane voice talking to itself with a story about who it is that's complete fiction. We're looking at that, and we're forgiving ourselves for being what blocks our awareness of love. And we're doing that.
Remembering.
And we're doing that until we're ready to let it go. Because if we look at it for what it is, we will let it go. If we look at the problem the way it is rather than the way we're setting it up, then it's as sure as God that we will let go of the ego's hand and take the Holy Spirit's, and the love is just there. So
recognizing what's valueless and etc. It's all those things.
And the valueless. The valueless is Keith and Fran. That's the valueless.
I'm again, I'm just so grateful that sometimes I get this sense, and a little image that this right side of my brain is actually bigger now. The right side, rather, the right mind is bigger now. It's more spacious. It's filling up. And you know, all of that is because we're in this world and need form and images. I understand that, but something is happening, and
Good.
I'm so
That's
grateful. I'm
Yeah,
just
I
so
mean,
grateful.
that's a lovely way of putting it, because when I had the experience of the anxiety getting healed gradually, the way I put it was, it feels like the silence and stillness is taking back territory from the noise and the fear. That was exactly
That's
what it was like.
yeah, yeah.
So I think you're
And
saying the same thing.
and once it's sort of committed to, God, you know,
Yeah.
God holds you to your contracts. I can't even go back. It's gone. You know, because I go poking around like a fool, you know, to
Yeah,
see if it's still there. So
absolutely. Yeah.
thank you. Thank
And
you,
I
everyone.
think when you've had an experience of healing, and just again, when we talk about healing, the healing will be, this has no effect on the love and peace in my mind. That's what healing is. It's not whether my boiler needs to be fixed or if it doesn't, or whether my family member
Right,
gets better or they don't.
exactly.
The healing is, this has no effect on the love and peace of the Holy Spirit in my mind. That's what the
E-
healing
e-
is.
e-
Yeah.
Exactly. I was going, you know, going crazy in the world as we do, wringing my hands
Jeez.
about this thing and that thing coming up, and oh my goodness. And then I thought, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
These things aren't even real. And
Yeah.
I was able, you know, and they still come up, and oh, okay, but it's a different, if it's a different dynamic now.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
and so here I
Yeah.
am. One,
Fair play to you, Fran.
thank you.
Yeah, really, the whole course is just, it could be encapsulated in saying, you're not what you think you are. All your unhappiness is because you think you are this voice in your head with its body and its emotions. And you're not that thing, but because you keep
Thank
thinking you're that
God.
thing, that's all you're
Thank,
suffering.
yeah,
And
thank God.
the minute we let go of the lie of what we are and connect with our truth, which is a pure, non-judgmental, present moment awareness, the joy, love, and peace of God is there, and the world has no effect on us.
And I want to add one more thing, because I never realized how long I was really trying to make these changes, do a different choice using my ego strength, my own
Ego,
weakness.
yes,
I
yes.
had no idea. And now I do a little affirmational chant. I choose the strength of Christ
Yes,
to do this. I am choosing something way beyond my experience identity
absolutely.
here. And I
Yes.
just tell Jesus, you know, forget the language I'm using, you know, the drill. I can't get into
Absolutely.
that perfectionistic thing.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
really
this
what
is
it
a heart
is,
prayer.
it's just swapping out the self you think you are for the self you are, which is Christ.
Yeah. And
But
yeah,
so yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Brilliant.
thank you.
Are we all done the questions, Eli? Shall we move on to the next one?
We shall move on. The floor is
Very
yours.
good. Let's dig out the next one, which is miracle principle number 15. Each day should be devoted to miracles. The purpose of time is to enable you to learn how to use time constructively. It is thus a teaching device and a means to an end. So he's really saying to us there that time is a teaching device. He also tells us that the body is a teaching device. And we could also say the world is a teaching device. The truth is, there's no time, there's no body, there's no world, but the Holy Spirit gives them a function, which is to teach us. I feel like you could say the purpose of the world is to teach us to be a classroom where we learn there's no world. The purpose of the body is to be a classroom where we learn there's no body. And the purpose of time is to be a teaching device where we learn that there's no time. Time will cease when it is no longer useful in facilitating learning. So the only purpose the Holy Spirit gives anything is its ability to be a classroom to teach us forgiveness. And so each day should be devoted to miracles. You see, this is really the full commitment to the course, whereby you get up in the morning and you understand every single thing that happens for me today is not for my pleasure and it's not for my pain. It is a lesson in my classroom for the day. And so at some point, we got to work up to it and we got to forgive ourselves for all the times that we don't do it. But we really need to be aware enough, conscious enough, awake enough in our mind with Jesus that we're going, well, what's going to happen next? What's the next lesson? What's the next thing that I'm going to project my guilt all over and that I'm going to take it back then and undo it in myself? And so really, that's what we need to be working towards, whereby from the minute we open our eyes in the morning, Ken Wapting says it's from the minute I open my eyes in the morning, I'm in class. And it's that it doesn't matter what happens. It doesn't matter if the dog went to the toilet on the carpet. It doesn't matter if my partner is contrary and taking it out on me. It doesn't matter if there's traffic. It doesn't matter if someone cuts me off. The only purpose that has is for me to project all over it and go, oh, right, there's my guilt coming up. Let me take that back. That's my stuff, and shining that away with Jesus. Looking at it in myself rather than in the world. And this is what this principle is saying. We've got to lose the idea that, we got to work up to losing the idea that I need this to happen in the world so I can be happy. Or I need this to happen in the world so I can avoid pain. It's beginning a shift where the only purpose anything that's happening has is as a classroom. And even if it's someone that I love or care about that's sick, the only purpose that has is a classroom for me to not see you as a body and a separate self that can be sick. Because as long as I see you as a body, an ego that can be sick, I've got to see myself as a body and an ego that can be sick, because what we're teaching, we're learning. Really we might cover that miracle principle today, but the maximal service that we can do for a brother when that brother is temporarily in the wrong mind and thinks they're a body and an insane voice talking to itself and that they can be hurt and sick and die, the maximal service we can do is when we're temporarily in our right mind, is communicate to their mind, none of that matters. Doesn't matter the worst thing that could ever happen to you. It has no effect on the you that's real. And that is what genuine healing is. And by my seeing that in you, I must see that in myself, because what I teach, I learn. So that's what this principle is really saying. Every single thing that happens when we're with the Holy Spirit. Now, look, we're not going to stay with the Holy Spirit. The guilt in our mind is going to make us afraid of the light. And we're going to go back to identifying with the insane voice talking to itself in our minds and seeking out salvation in the world. But again, each time we go back to the Holy Spirit, it's with the understanding that the world has got, I'm not seeing the world as something that's going to make me happy. I'm not seeing the world as something that can take happiness from me. Everything that's happening is for my enlightenment. Everything that's happening is my atonement. Everything that's happening is how I returned to God, because everyone returns home to God. We're seeing only the past. So that is what miracle principle number 15 is saying. Anyone like to ask questions on that?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Which relates to that. My wife's home health aide has lost 4 family members. Her house has been broken into, vandalized, and flooding taking place, and things not working. Her car and her truck don't work. So she's stuck in this very negative mentality. And I realized my trying to give her information that I get from the course, she's not going to hear it. Again, my job from everything I gather is to work on myself, is to heal the perception that I have of this situation.
Yes.
And not judge her or her situations based on what I think I see. And
yes.
I mean, the lessons tell us I'm not seeing everything clearly anyway.
Yeah.
So,
and I'm upset because I see something that isn't there.
exactly. And so
Yes.
my best way to help her is to be the best that I can be, is to work with my healing myself. That's what I get from all of this.
Yeah. Your only job is to heal yourself. The sole responsibility of the miracle worker is to accept the atonement for himself, which is the world never happened. Bodies never happened. The splintering of God's son, the crucifixion of God's son never happened. And so really it is for you to, first of all, let go of the ego's hand and take the Holy Spirit's hand, which means you're understanding, I am not the insane voice talking to itself in my mind, and I am not a body in the world. I am what's with Jesus or the Holy Spirit. And we can think about that as being above the battleground or in the cinema with Jesus. But the important thing we understand is we have two selves, and one of them is completely fictional. And that's the one that thinks it's a body. And when I connect with what is not a body or an insane voice talking to itself in my mind, now I see that that is what's in everyone. And so in terms of, because again, yes, your job is not saving anyone else in the world because nobody else needs saving. The miracle shows me nobody needs saving because they're not a body or an insane voice talking to themselves. They're not an ego. And so if you like, Jesus got to the place where he knew nobody needed saving because all he saw was the Christ in everyone. And that's what we got to work on. But we got to see the Christ in ourselves first. And that means we got to let go of the ego's hand, not be the insane voice talking to itself, not understand, I'm not the body. I'm the stillness and silence in my mind. I am that which is with Jesus in the cinema or above the battleground. And so is everyone else. And it is in this that we are one. And then the thing is, and just to finish that out, the tightrope situation, the balancing act we've got to do is that on the one hand, you have to know this woman has no problems because she's Christ, like I am. Even as you are alert to how love wants to express itself through you on the level of form to a body. So when you get back in touch with that love, that stillness, that silence, that will express itself through you. It will take a form around the problem within the world and be loving and effective and helping. But you will understand that that's just part of the movie. And the only advantage to that is it lets me know I am with the love and the love is happening through me.
So what I get two things from that. One of them is that when I see her in terms of the events that have happened in her life, that's showing me, just like in this lesson, what I can work on. Because I'm not seeing with the right mind, I'm seeing with the ego. And the other thing is when I quote unquote rest in God or reach the atonement, that is what this lesson is pointing me towards.
Yes, it's what it's all pointing us towards. Yes.
Yeah.
Because again, rest in God, awareness, all these things are saying the exact same thing. The quiet center, the stately calm, all of it is saying the exact same thing, which is you're not the noise in your head. All the noise is lies. It's lies about lies. What you are is the stillness in behind it.
I feel like the Holy Spirit is saying, here, Michael, look at this situation. Let's see how much you've learned. And then,
indeed.
And
that's very much so is that. Yes. That's why all things work together for good. I mean, ultimately, we will all begin by empathizing with the ego in someone. Okay. And then what we need to understand is that that is a double attack on Christ, because the first thing I've done is I've attacked the Christ in me to identify as an insane voice talking to itself in the world. And then the second thing I've done is I am launching an attack on a brother and saying, you are not Christ. You are a body and an insane voice talking to itself in the world. And then the only thing that leads from that is me going, well, I will be a holy ego and I will do the wonderful thing. So I've made the error real, and now I'm going to fix it. And I'm going to feel, even though I feel worthless and unworthy as an ego, I'm going to feel better because I have done something holy in the world.
One of my favorite words which I learned that I used to say when I was bowling, and I'd go into the alley instead of hit the pins, and I'd say "oops," and all of the soldiers that were around me would laugh because. And so now, yeah, a situation when I'm looking at this home health aide in a certain way, I say, "Oops, that's not the way I wish to see her."
Yeah.
And but it makes perfect sense. Work on myself and how I see the world, and that is my job. So,
because anything you try and do as an ego for an ego is totally polluted with ego and will just perpetuate ego. Whereas if we can get our ego out of the way, if I can connect with the peace that I am in behind the noise, then I can communicate that peace to the person that's in front of me. And then additionally, the love and peace in my mind, which has an intelligence far beyond the ego, is going to express itself through me at a level of form in the way that's genuinely helpful and loving to someone that thinks they're a body. And that's so we're not saying you don't do anything to help anyone. What we're saying is you don't do it as an ego.
Exactly.
Instead, what you do is you get back to that spiritual intelligence and you allow that to happen through you where you've no investment in it. Yeah, that's the important thing. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you. Are we good on that ego? Shall we? Or Eli ego? Eli
ego. Well, that's true. Very true words right there. Okay, away you go, Keith. It's all yours.
Fair enough. So we're on to miracle principle number 16. Miracles are teaching devices for demonstrating it is as blessed to give as to receive. They simultaneously increase the strength of the giver and supply strength to the receiver. Now, that's very similar. And as we said when we started the principles, there's a lot of redundancy in the principles in the sense that Jesus really just kind of starts going over the same things all over again and just saying it in a slightly different way, which in truth, the entire Course in Miracles is the exact same thing. So that's like miracle principle number 9. Miracles are teaching devices to learn that we're not separate. So our body and the insane voice talking to itself would seem to confirm to us constantly that we are separate and we are different. And the miracle shows us that we're not. Again, the message is that we're not what we think we are. That's what we're choosing to be, even though it's what we're not, and we don't have to keep choosing that. So really, it reinforces my understanding and my connection with my identity as Christ when I see you as Christ. So by seeing the strength of Christ in you, I get to hold that identification with the strength of Christ in me. But if I identify with the weakness of the ego in you, then I must identify with the weakness of the ego in me. I think that's pretty much straightforward on that one. Would anyone like to ask a question on that? It ties in nicely with what myself and Michael were just talking about there in terms of that miracle principle. It's saying the same thing. I think we're good on that, are we, Eli?
Yes, we are. Away you go.
Cool. So let's move on to miracle principle number 17. Miracles transcend the body. They are sudden shifts into invisibility, away from the bodily level, and that is why they heal. So again, this is essential in the sense that we are identified with the apparent form of a body, and we are identified with the apparent information in my mind. And a miracle is a shift away from all of that into invisibility, into just being awareness, not having anything to do with form or information. It is, I don't know what anything is for, so I'm rejecting all the information in my mind. I'm, rejecting my identity as a body. I'm spirit. I am a decision-making mind outside of time and space. I'm only in the world when I have thrown the Holy Spirit away and I've identified with the belief in separateness, and then I've jumped into the movie and I've misidentified as a body. So the miracle undoes that. It brings me back out of the world, back into being a mind outside of time and space as my reality. And so I think this is, I really like the way this miracle principle is put in terms of their shifts into invisibility. I am not the form. I am not a physical form or a psychological form. I am what is prior to that. I am what is behind that. I am the right mind, which is a non-judgmental observer. The decision maker, joined with the Holy Spirit, is a non-judgmental observer, which makes perfect sense because the whole course is about learning to look at the world in the present moment without imposing the past on it. So ultimately, the lesson for me, has to be being a pure present moment awareness. That's not comparing what's happening with the learnings from my past. So that there's no sense of identity with anything that appears to have happened in the past. Now, that doesn't mean that when we're in the real world, we can't access a memory of the past. You just wouldn't identify with it. It would have no bearing on what you are. You would not be tempted from your true nature to identify with a story in the past, with a movie character's storyline. So again, miracles transcend the body, nothing to do with a physical body or a psychological body. All your unhappiness comes from thinking you are a physical and a psychological body. But there is an awareness in behind that. And the minute I say I don't know what anything is for, that awareness is present. And again, Jesus would say to us, the holy instant does not require that you have no thoughts that are not pure, just none that you would keep. All I ever have to do is be willing, even if I'm not able to do it now, all I have to do is be willing to experience myself as something that's not the insane voice talking to itself or its body. I just have to be willing to experience myself as something other than that. The invisible, the formlessness aware of the form, silence aware of the noise, the stillness aware of the movement. Okay, anyone want to ask a question on miracle principle number 17? We're all good there?
Any questions at all there, Keith.
Very
keep
good.
going.
Well, I think what we'll do at this point is, I think we'll just see, would anyone like to share or ask questions of a more general nature connected with your own spiritual journey or with your own forgiveness process? I think maybe we'll see if we can devote this time to anything that has a more general flavor people might like to talk about or ask about now. So where should we go, Eli?
Sherry right away put her hand up, so you go ahead.
The stage is yours, Sherry.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Sherry.
I actually have, I do have an experience that I wanted to share, but Bea Floor also had a question that I think got skipped. Can I read that? Because it's kind of similar to mine.
This is in the chat box, is it?
Yes.
Okay, well, okay. Yeah, if you think it's related, then go ahead.
She has, my question is, even knowing that I went through an intense period of sheer terror for about a year, I was practically paralyzed with generic fear. It has gone now, but what was that all about? Of course, I'm scared it will return. And I guess she had an out-of-body experience where she flipped over the handlebars of her bike. And I had a similar experience when I fell out of headstand. This was like 15 years ago before I even read the course. And when I fell out of the headstand, just a very quick moment, something said to me, it doesn't matter, you're not a body. And I was like, what was that? It was like, it really freaked me out. And I didn't know until now I'm doing the course. I'm like, whoa, that's really cool.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I just didn't know if, you had anything to say about, about that.
Okay, I guess two things. So let's begin with the fear thing. So first of all, what was the first name of the lady that wrote that?
Beija, Beija, Floor.
Beija. Okay, Beija. So Beija, so first of all, I can totally relate to that because I had 8 years of a generalized anxiety disorder where it was there first thing in the morning until last thing at night. It's really important to understand that there is only one fear in the world, and that's the fear that God's going to destroy you for being an ego. That's the only fear in the world. The only sadness in the world is actually the loss of our innocence. Jesus says in the psychotherapy pamphlet, he says, and who could weep but for his innocence? So this world is just a projection of what's in our mind. And so all these various different things are just symbols for what's going on in our mind. And there's just one fear and there's just one upset, which is the loss of our innocence, that we've thrown it away and we'll never get it back. And so I'm not sure what the nature of your anxiety was, Beija, but really we've come down here and we've denied the battleground with God in our mind. Now, we believe we're at war with God in our mind. God doesn't believe in it at all because it's not real. But we believe that, and we've now denied that and split it off, and we've hidden in a world and splintered ourselves into multiple personalities in the world. And now we're just sort of playing that dynamic off each other. And so the course formula is that we undo our fear of God by undoing our fear of each other. And I think at some point on everyone's spiritual journey, they're going to have to get in touch with fear. And I think for some people that will feel very much so like literally the fear of God. But I think that's less common. And I think for most people, it's going to be getting in touch with your fear where you've projected it. Which is onto the world and your circumstances and the other people in the world. And I think what's really important is that, and this is where my process was very much so, this being in the cinema with Jesus, where I really adopted that as the thing that Ken taught, again, which is just understanding I have two selves. And again, it's only the insane voice talking to itself that has fear. So the Course tells us what suffers isn't part of me. God's son can suffer nothing and I'm a son. And so the only thing we ever have is an identity problem. And so for me, that was like 4.5 months in the cinema with Jesus, looking at the fear in my mind on the movie screen and saying, but what does it have to do with the me that's with Jesus? And that's what I would say to you. When we experience the fear coming up, it's only ever to understand we have two selves. So anytime we identify as a body and an insane voice talking to itself, there's going to be fear and there's going to be hate, self-hatred, and hatred of others, and that's, again, Jesus says we've only one problem, which is the decision to be separate from the Holy Spirit and decide for the ego. And there's only one problem, one solution to everything, which is undo that decision to join with the Holy Spirit. And so all we ever want to do is look at the fact that we're deciding to be what is suffering without judging ourselves for it. And the minute we do that, our right mind and our wrong mind is present. And that's all that's required. You have the light of awareness in your mind, and you have the darkness of guilt and fear in your mind. And the light will undo the darkness. So I hope that makes sense. It's always about bringing your wrong mind to your right mind instead of just being lost and spiritually unconscious in your wrong mind. Once your right mind's there, once you have the presence of Jesus or the Holy Spirit in your mind, that's going to do the job. Good. The second question then is around about out-of-body experiences. And really, I think it's intriguing, and I think it's interesting the question has come up today, because I only thought about it during the week, how people would report that they have an out-of-body experience. And the fact is, we're never in the body. It's a little glimpse of truth when we experience ourselves outside the body. Because, as Jesus says in the Course, he who carries Christ in him sees him everywhere, except in bodies. So I think it's a little glimpse of a truth when people in difficult circumstances actually have an experience of not being in the body anymore. Spiritually speaking, you were never in the body to begin with. The body's in you as a mind. Does that make sense, Sherry?
Yes, but at the time, I had no idea.
Yeah.
At the time I was just like, whoa, that, kind of like freaked me out, but I felt very content. I felt very like at home. But now that I'm reading the Course and, I'm all new to this, it totally clicks, and now it totally makes sense and I get it. It helps me understand more. It like reinforces the Course.
Yeah. Perfect. Brilliant.
Thank
Where
you.
should we go next, Eli?
Okay, Adrian, you can go ahead and unmute
Adrian.
yourself.
Great. Can you hear me?
Hi, Adrian.
How are you, Keith? How's everybody?
Good.
Good. Just a quick question. I actually came on a little bit late, and my two teenage daughters are with me, so I'm going to have to run them home shortly. But my kind of question is, it's around, that I can't remember which lesson, but it says something like sickness or illness is a defense against the truth.
Yeah.
And I suppose I'm experiencing like I don't know if I mentioned it any of the other times I asked the question, but like my mother passed away quite suddenly last August, and a couple of months after that I got COVID for a second time. And I've got long COVID now. I've been out of work for months, and my energy is completely shagged the whole time, and I'm signed off until at least June. And I usually be fairly well and healthy, and I wouldn't be a sick person as such. And I know a lot of it's emotionally connected, but it's like anytime I feel I'm getting a bit better now, and that's all coupled with the fact that I'm doing an awful lot of work on the Course.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing kind of like an hour and a half meditation every morning. I'm using the time off work kind of well, I suppose. And I've just started coming on to your calls, Keith, and I'm doing calls with other people, and I'm putting a lot of work in, I suppose. And but like anytime physically I feel myself getting a little bit better, I'll push myself too much and I'll get sick again, and I was in physically sick. And so I don't know what's like, is it the body's way of just kind of working through the old fears that are coming out in a physical manifestation, or?
No, because the body is a lifeless puppet. It just responds to the wishes of the mind. But we have a split mind, Adrian, right? So we have our wrong mind and we have a right mind. We have the ego and we have the Holy Spirit. And the body will respond to the wishes of either a wrong mind or a right mind. And so it's quite important to understand that the body doesn't have any intelligence of its own at all. And that it's only ever the mind that needs healing, because the body that has aches and pains and fatigue doesn't exist. So it's a little bit like the phantom limb syndrome, when someone gets an amputation or something like that and they feel pain in their leg that's no longer there. That's a very good analogy to what it's really like, in the sense that we're going, well, my body aches there, but actually no, it's the mind that's doing it, the same way as the mind that's doing it when there's a phantom pain for an amputee. And so the only place we ever need healing is in the mind. But in terms of, it's like what we said earlier on, Adrian, you know, the ego has a plan for your salvation. And the ego's plan for your salvation is that you're going to be perfectly healthy, and that you're going to have people in your life who are going to make you feel good about yourself, which will cover over your self-hatred, and that will make you feel worthy, even though deep down you don't. And that you're going to have lots of money, and that, you know, the country is going to be, you know, doing well, and people are all going to be happy, and people are going to treat each other well. And that's the ego's plan, which is that the problem is out there in the world, in your body and in other people's bodies and in the world. And that's where we need to fix it. And all of that, you know, that lesson, sickness is a defense against the truth. Well, the world is a defense against the truth. The body is a defense against the truth. Death is a defense against the truth. It's all a defense against the truth. Anger is a defense against the truth. These are all defenses. And so, you know, I think the practice, it's like we were saying earlier on, where you get up in the morning and you understand that everything is not going to be the ego's plan for my salvation. Everything is not going to be what will make me happy or unhappy. Everything that happens for me is going to give me an opportunity to see where I am making illusions real, where I am projecting my guilt and my fear, and for me to undo that. So that everything that's happening is a classroom where I'm learning how to undo my ego, where I'm learning how to remember God. And so what I would say to you is that, you know, in the Course, Jesus says you have to know what sickness is. And what sickness is your wrong mind going, you're a body. All right, that's what it is. So, you know,
like what I've
that's what the
been,
plan is.
yeah, like 4 o'clock this morning, like I woke up in fairly savage pain, like my throat was really throbbing, and just, you know, so I took strong painkillers, whatever. But all that, I seem to be able to step away from it, like, and almost observe it, like, and I just keep saying, because lately I'm learning more and more that, you know, it's no good for me to pray to the Holy Spirit or Jesus and say, sort out my sore throat, please. Like, rather what I'm being saying is, just help me to see this differently.
Which is, and the way you would see it differently is that, what does it have to do with me?
Oh yeah, okay. As in,
So
I'm
see,
not the body, so that this is nothing to, the body has nothing to
you're
do
not
with me.
yeah, what suffers isn't part of me, not the body, and not the insane voice identified with the body feeling like an innocent victim.
Yeah, that's actually the lesson I'm doing today. Actually, is before it's
So again, the purpose of sickness is so that I can so that I will believe I'm a body. So that is the defense against the light of the Holy Spirit in my mind, where there's no bodies and no separate selves. And so the ego defense against that is like sickness, which says, look, you are a body.
But so is that so is it a case of that, obviously on some level I'm unconscious of constantly slipping back into ego mind, which is causing the sickness, and so all I can do is just to keep reminding myself to go back to the right mind, or was I looking into it too much? Like,
I see, I think it's a mistake to look at it that way. Because I mean, if you assume, right, well, if I'm in my wrong mind, I'll be sick. If I'm in my right mind, then I won't be sick. If you assume that, well, then Jesus was absolutely crap at this. Because his last day on earth was horrifically bad health. You know, if I make the assumption that says, well, if I'm in my right mind, then suddenly, you know, if I don't believe in attack, I won't be attacked. If I don't believe in betrayal, I won't be betrayed. If I don't believe in death, I won't die. If I don't believe in sickness, I won't get sick. If I think that's what the Course is saying, then Jesus is the crappest example of that.
but I thought the whole point of that the whole lesson of the crucifixion was to show us that we're not a body, his body went through all that, but he wasn't affected in the
That's it.
slightest.
That's it.
Mm.
Yes.
Okay.
But it wasn't so that he didn't have to go through with it. It wasn't so his body refused to puncture on the cross.
Mm.
It wasn't so it didn't bleed and suffocate to death. The lesson was, what suffers isn't part of me.
Yeah. Okay. So therefore, I don't suffer. I can't suffer because I'm whole and innocent and pure.
And it just depends, what am I identifying with?
Mm.
So the last thing you want to do when you have sickness show up is start feeling guilty about the sickness.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
What you want to do is you want to treat it like the Holy Spirit wants everything to be a classroom. He wants your body to be a classroom where he teaches you that there's no body. He wants the world to be a classroom where you learn there's no world. He wants time to be a classroom where you learn that there's no time.
Yeah.
And, all things work together for good except in the ego's judgment. So, so really the course is not a course that's saying to us, do the course and you're never going to have any problems. You're never going to be sick. You're never going to have any problems. You never have money problems. People will never treat you badly. It's not saying that at all. All that's still going to happen, but it's saying, but it doesn't have to take away your peace.
Mm. Mm.
It doesn't have to take away your peace. And in that learning, I am relinquishing slowly my identification with being a body and an insane voice talking to itself. And I'm beginning to identify more with that which is unlimited, a pure awareness that the world can't touch.
Yeah. Thank you.
So again, it's really just, again, if we understand that the purpose of sickness is to be a separate self, and then to be the ego, and then the ego believes in sacrifice, which is like, if I'm suffering, God might feel sorry for me and he's not going to sort of like kill me. And instead, he's going to kill the people that I blame for my suffering.
Mm.
So that's really what sickness is. First of all, that I am a body. Second of all, that this is sacrifice now, where I'm going to suffer so God won't destroy me, and where he's going to destroy the people that I'm blaming for the fact that I'm suffering. So that's the purpose of sickness, which is just, and again, that still falls in the confines of, we have one problem, which is the decision to identify with the ego, to be a body and an insane voice talking to itself. And there's one solution to everything, which is undo that decision to identify with what is not a body or insane voice talking to itself.
Yeah.
And it's only from that place I can forgive my brother for what he hasn't done, because he's done nothing to awareness. As long as I identify with an insane voice talking to itself in a body, then I can't forgive my brother for what he hasn't done, because he did it. So I can only forgive what hasn't happened as awareness, which is not a body or an insane voice talking to itself. And in the same way, I can only really forgive my body's sickness from a place where I understand that I'm not the body.
Yeah.
So I would treat it as a classroom and not something to beat yourself over the head with the course about. Adrian, that's the important thing.
Yeah. That's very clear. Thanks so much.
No worries. Where should we go next, Eli?
Kirsty, you have your hand up. You can unmute yourself.
Go for it, Kirsty.
Thanks, Eli. Thanks, Keith. I've been working quite hard in the past couple of weeks on the forgiveness of one particular person in my life who's been the big forgiveness person for the last kind of, over 10 years, really, 20 years maybe. And I've been doing the Byron Katie, is that, the worksheet over it with a mind healing partner. And I've been, the question, is it true? So that this person is a complete psychopath. Is that true? Is it real? And it has been quite miraculous in one way, in that I have seen this person in his truth as somebody who is actually there genuinely to help me. and somebody without an ego, somebody who's actually there, showing up in the world in order to actually help me, and
Sure.
that's the truth of this person. But what I'm confused about is, am I meant to see this person's motivations in the move? That's what he is in the truest form of truth. But in the movie, am I meant to be reinterpreting his behaviors as anything other than, whatever they would, very bad? Am I actually meant to be or is Jesus going to be showing me that within the illusion, within the movie, his motivations towards me are kind of more benign than, or does that make sense? Does the question make sense?
It does. Let me try and formulate an answer. So ideally, what you want to understand is that whatever is happening, whatever you think is happening with him, because we all make egos not only for ourselves but for everyone else, which has nothing to do with what they are or what they think they are. Regardless of what the ego we have made for someone appears to be doing, the only purpose that has is so I can look at the fact that I'm giving my peace away to it, and that I stop doing that to go back to having my peace, to go back to my quiet center, to go back to my stately calm. And then really, it's not about me. See, if I'm an ego and I'm going, well, this is what happened in the past, and this is what I read about in a book, and this is what I could, again, that's just one ego interacting with another ego. So instead, what I want to do is I want to go back to what I am in the stately calm, to what I am as the quiet center, where I'm not giving my peace away to something, that I understand that my peace is coming from being joined with the Holy Spirit. And then I would understand that that's what he is in truth. And then I would make a decision on how to behave in the dream, not based on past learnings and not based on his past, but rather based on what feels intuitively right to do in the moment, which is loving for everyone concerned in the situation. So it's almost like, if I just get back to the stillness and silence instead of the crazy noise in my head, if I just get back to the fact that nothing can take my peace from me, well then effective, loving action just kind of happens through me in the situation. But the whole ideal is that we would get our ego out of the way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, what I'm kind of getting from your answer, Keith, is that I shouldn't necessarily focus on the question, because is that really what you're saying? That the question
that you shouldn't focus on which question?
The question of, am I meant to reinterpret this person's motivations within the movie?
No, you see, the idea that you're supposed to reinterpret anything would be going down the wrong track. What you're asking for is the Holy Spirit's interpretation, which has got nothing to do with Kirsty's interpretation.
Okay, well, let me rephrase then, Keith.
Yeah.
Is Holy Spirit going to reinterpret this particular movie character's motivations within the movie for me, from being a raging psychopath to being somebody who's actually not really that bad, actually? Does that, even though in truth I've seen this person as a beautiful, several times, a beautiful, holy, beautiful, like the Christ, I've seen him several times like that. In the movie, he's showing up as a very, very dangerous individual. And would Holy Spirit be interested in reinterpreting this individual's character within the movie as anything other than what he's showing up as?
Well, of course, because Christ's vision would not look upon a body and mistake it for the Son whom God created. Beholds a light beyond the body, an idea beyond what can be touched. So you would, if you're joined with the Holy Spirit, you would have that vision. And again, the idea would be not to make a decision by yourself. The idea would be to get all of the fear and the worry and the stress and the need to control out of the way, so that love can express itself through you in the most perfect way that serves everyone concerned with a situation. So the Holy Spirit,
form of this person,
like the Holy Spirit would see, bodies, but doesn't believe in them. And that goes for physical bodies and psychological bodies. So the Holy Spirit doesn't believe in it.
Right. Okay. I see what you mean. So there'd be no question of that anyway, because the Holy Spirit doesn't recognize the form, doesn't recognize the physical or psychological body. That's just my own projection.
Yeah.
So it looks, come into it. Yeah. No, I see what you mean.
It would look straight past. It would look straight past the body to see the truth. But obviously, on the level of form, you still need to know what decisions to make. So I'm not saying that you have to leave yourself in compromising situations physically.
Oh, no.
That's
not my
good.
issue, Keith. It's just would I be would my mind healing take me down the way of thinking, well, this movie character actually didn't mean to do me any harm when he did this or that? And
that's really the reinterpretation of like a call for love.
Yeah.
So that really, there's only two things in the world, which is love and fear. And so behind every apparent attack is a fear. So the only reason anyone ever does anything as an attack on someone else is completely out of fear.
Out of fear, yeah. Sure. So it's fear. A call is either a love or a call for love, yeah. No, I see. Yeah.
And the important thing is that, really the sole purpose of, like even the description of him as dangerous, it's really for us to own the fact that what we're seeing in him as dangerous is just a projection of the fact that we believe we're dangerous, that we tore oneness asunder, that we destroyed heaven to be a me. It was God or me, either oneness, God as oneness lives, or I live. And, and we all as one mind decided, fuck him. That's how dangerous we believe we are, that we said that of God.
I've seen that, absolutely seen that in a bit of a kind of a meditation in the last week.
Good.
How, because my thing was, well, I've never done to anyone what he has done. It's not my character. But actually what I was shown as my response to that was my belief that I have in terms of the whole world.
Yeah.
Not in terms of one particular person, in terms of the whole world.
Yeah.
It was really weird, actually. But yeah. But thank you, Keith. That's really helpful.
And I mean, anyone, here who says I've never wished someone was dead is a liar or really, really good at repression. So the fact is we're all murderers, at least our wrong mind, our pretend self is. And the good news is we're not that. But the only reason that we would feel so horrified by murderers and by thieves and by all of that is because it's what's in us. Because when we're in the real world, these are just images. And they've no effect on the love and peace of the Holy Spirit in my mind. But until then, these which are simply images are going to be shining with guilt, but it's mine. And so the only place, I can undo my guilt is where I've put it, and that's shining in everyone else around me. including the murderers and the rapists and the child abusers and all of that. Those are just images. Any of the horror in my mind, any of the reaction coming up, that's mine. You know, as the one mind, we created all those images. And we did that so we could see the guilt on the inside, on the outside. And in the real world, all we see is images. And there will be no allocation of guilt, no fear of them whatsoever. So that's really, I think it's often good to keep in mind where the finish line is, and then to look at where we're at and forgive ourselves for not being at the finish line. Not to beat ourselves over the head with the course.
I'm a little way off the finish line, I think, at the moment.
We're all a little way off the finish line.
Yeah.
And again, the way you get to the finish line is forgiving yourself for not wanting to be at the finish line. Because now the part of you that's forgiving yourself for not wanting to be at the finish line is the part that's already at the finish line.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. As I've got into the course, and I've been at this for 15 years, but as I've got into it, really deeper and deeper into it, I'm just realizing that it's got nothing at all to do with what I thought it had to do with.
No, or what we wanted it to have to do with.
Yeah. What it's asking,
Absolutely.
Jesus says consistently throughout the course, he's like a salesman. He says consistently throughout the course, would you give this tiny bit for the whole world?
Mm-hmm.
But actually, when from the ego's perspective, it's not a tiny bit at all, is it? It's everything that you believe you are, which is the problem, isn't it? While you're identified with the
exactly
ego.
it. That's why Jesus makes it so simple. He goes, you've one problem: the decision to identify with the ego instead of the Holy Spirit, and then to believe that you are a body and a separate self, an insane voice talking to itself, and lacking and self-hating. And then you go out into the world going, I need something to take away my self-hatred, and someone to like love me so I can feel like lovable even though I don't really believe it, and so I can manipulate people to give me what I need, and so I can like want and take, and so I can have so others don't have, and to hell with them. And then so, you know, again, all of that is, there's only one cause of all of that, which is me deciding I want to be this insane voice talking to itself in my mind.
Which is a massive thing to persuade the ego to give up.
The ego won't give it up. That's the point.
Well,
the
it
ego
would
can't
persuade the decision maker to give up, should I say, sorry.
Yeah. But again, all you want to do is have an experience of what the decision maker is when it's not making that decision. And again, the way you bring yourself to that holy instant, because once you've had a holy instant, you can never fool yourself again. But the way you do that is quite simply bringing your right mind on board at the same time as you're choosing your wrong mind. So again, the thing is, just have Jesus in your mind. You know, what we'll do is we'll go, no, I want to be the insane voice talking to itself in my mind, and I want to like fantasize about murdering people, and I want to like go after revenge. And therefore I can't have Jesus in my mind because of my shame. And really all the Course is saying is, let Jesus in looking at you that with you. And that's it. If you just do that, if you will just let Jesus in your mind at the same time as your murderousness, as the same time that you're choosing, I want to have vengeance, I really want to destroy this person, I really am the innocent victim and I want to feel sorry for myself. It's really just have Jesus in your mind at the same time. Because Jesus is a symbol for your right mind. And we're only asked to bring the darkness to the light. We're not asked to fight the darkness. We're not asked to have perfect, pure thoughts. Again, the holy instant does not require that you've no thoughts that's not pure, just none you would keep. So it's like right now, I still want to be this murderous, victimized, hopeless, God-hating, me-hating, world-hating thing. You know, but I would be open to experience myself as something other than this. And that's the little willingness. So he only asks for that little willingness. He's not asking you to deny Kirsty, to throw Kirsty away. He's only asking you to deny what Kirsty is, which is your defense against your true nature. And he's just asking you to let him in your mind, and that you would both look without any judgment on the decision you're making to be Kirsty. And if you do that, your decision to not be Kirsty and be a pure, non-judgmental, present moment awareness is as sure as God. That's his great promise in the course.
Although
so again,
it may have take the illusion of time quite a few. It may require the illusion of quite a few years of time of doing that in order to get there, kind of thing.
Time is a complicated business, because as soon as you're there, it didn't take any time at all. It's what you always were. Again, we're not trying to become something. You're only trying to unlearn something you taught yourself, which isn't true. So you don't have to become a pure non-judgmental awareness. That's already present in your mind. Your right mind and wrong mind are always present concurrently, simultaneously. It's just that we have split them off. And really the course is just about undoing that splitting off, undoing that dissociation. We just want to bring the madness to awareness. Just want to bring our decision for the ego to an awareness. All we ever have to do is just look at the ego for what it is, rather than what we're setting it up to be. And that we will automatically choose against it. There's nothing surer. But along the journey, we're going to be undoing our guilt. And as we do that, then we're going to become more and more peaceful. It's like I was having the conversation with Fran earlier on. You'll have the experience that the war in your mind, that peace is going to slowly take back territory from it. So it's not like we're, it's throw away the ego or nothing. It's this journey whereby you're experiencing more and more peace and more invulnerability to what's happening in your nightmares. And more ability to have a happy dream with the same content that was causing bad dreams for you before. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, Keith. Well, to the extent that I'm capable of understanding it. It's a very coherent answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kirsty. Where should we go next, Eli?
Laurie, you have your hand up. You can unmute yourself.
Thank you. Hi, Keith.
Hi, Laurie.
Hi. The question is, when we are this non-judgmental awareness, does this also look a specific way in form? As in, does that mean that the body is also not reacting when there's something going on? Or can it still be that the body is still reacting, like being upset or crying or something? Because I noticed that there's not much going on with the body, but then other people find it very weird that this body is not reacting to what is being said. So could you comment on that?
So just to be clear, what you're saying is that you would choose to be the peace in your mind instead of the war, and therefore, even if somebody else is becoming hostile, you're staying peaceful, and then that they can't cope with that. Is that your question?
Yeah, that's the question. Is it when we're being non-judgmental, does it also look like the body is just not reacting to what's going on? It's almost as if people would think sometimes I'm like passive, but I'm just trying to stay non-judgmental.
Mm-hmm.
Or is it possible that this body is still crying, but at the same time, you're not judging what's happening?
I mean, I think that it isn't really about us trying to jump into not judging someone else. Because if we're doing that, this is the ego trying to do something. So I think if I am the ego and I am and somebody's, I don't know, shouting at me or whatever, and I'm going, let me not judge them, that's me being a holy ego, right? And a spiritualized ego. And it's not really our formula. So our formula rather is for me to fall back into what's not upset. And that would be going back to Jesus in the cinema. Because the person shouting is shouting at the character on the movie screen, but not shouting at the me that's with Jesus. Because look, the Jesus, being with Jesus in the cinema, this is our metaphor for being awareness, a pure non-judgmental present moment awareness. And really, when we're in the real world, we will just simply identify as what's in the cinema. And we won't identify as the body.
Yeah, but when you do that, doesn't that also show in the movie?
Yeah, so with the proviso that the ego is not deciding to have the body behave in a certain way or not in a certain way, with that proviso, you fall back into the peace in your mind, and then your body, as much as it will, because your body has no reactions to anything, the mind just tells it what to do, and it can be your wrong mind or your right mind. So if you're joined with the ego, you will believe you are the movie character in the movie interacting with another movie character, and the body is going to do what your wrong mind is telling it to do. In the same way, if you come back into the cinema with Jesus, if you identify as a non-judgmental awareness rather than the insane voice talking to itself, then in the same way, the body is going to respond in a way that your right mind dictates it to respond. And that would be the idea of guidance. But it's really, guidance is about getting behind all the noise in your head and the reactions and the judgments and the guilt and the stories and the past learnings and all of that, just to the stillness. And when we get to that stillness, within it is love, and love just expresses itself through us in a way that's helpful. So there wouldn't be a rule of thumb in terms of what the body is doing. Because I think if you connect with that place of love, and then you have love express itself through you in a way that's helpful, that could still, in theory, mean throwing a thump at someone to protect somebody else, or it could mean shouting at someone to get them to break their state so they don't hurt themselves or someone else. And so I think it would be a mistake for us, as Jesus says, there's nothing so blinding as perception of form. So I think it would be a mistake to look at anything in form and think we know what that means about what's going on at the level of mind.
Okay. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. That's clear. Thank you.
Yeah, because it's only the ego that would, as Shakespeare said, nothing is right or wrong, but thinking makes it so. So it's only the ego that would go, this looks holy and this looks unholy, but there's no hierarchy of illusions. So again, if we can just get past my insane voice talking to itself in my mind, then there is the intelligence of the Holy Spirit, which operates through me and will just do what is the most loving, effective, and helpful and kindest thing in the situation for everyone concerned with the situation, so that there's no one or the other. It's one and the other.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Keith.
No worries. How are we doing, Eli?
We're doing pretty good, but I just wanted to ask Jane Logan, you had your hand up for quite a while. Did you have anything you wanted to add?
Hi.
Hi,
Actually,
Jane.
I took my hand down because I was sitting here just thinking about my question, I just wanted to kind of open up for discussion, and the Holy Spirit just downloaded a bunch of stuff, and I just kind of went, oh, okay, maybe I don't need to talk about this. But so I'll bring it out anyway, since you asked. I was asking, what I was going to bring up was the question of what is judgment, right? Because we talk about this all the time, and it's such a crucial part of our learning and our practice. But what it is isn't something that I think we talk about so much. And it's something that, I really have asked about, think about, and I would love to hear anything anyone actually has to say, because it might be something that I've missed. But what I've heard is that judgment essentially is making the mistake that what is the same is different, that there's something present that isn't present at all, or that I know anything at all, that I can draw a conclusion, that I know what anything means, that I know what is quote unquote right and wrong, that I know anything. If I think I know something, I'm judging. It's not necessarily, oh, that's a bad guy or that's a great gal. It's that if I think I know something. And so relinquishing judgment is me stepping back and saying, you know what? I don't know what anything means. I don't know what this is for. I don't know anything. You show me. And that allows like this empty space, if you will, for that, for the sun to shine, for that light to shine, for the love to come forth, for the experience of the presence of that love. Whereas my judgment or the belief that I could judge is like the cloud that's blocking it. Anything you can add, I'd love it. Anything you can add, because it's so important.
I think that's the best. I mean, just in terms of what you wrapped up with there is just the best way of putting it. And I think it ties in nicely with what we've been talking about the whole meeting through, which is really the voice in our head is wrong about everything. Everything. And that our gratitude to God is that we have been wrong about everything and the Holy Spirit was right. And so it's really just about stepping back from anything the voice in our head is telling us. That I'm a body, that I'm male, that I was born in a certain date, that I'm in a certain period of time. All of it is lies.
Everything.
Every single bit of it. So really, you know, again, Jesus says in the chorus, you know, it's not that you shouldn't judge, it's that you can't judge. I think there's many different levels of understanding that. You know, on one level, we can say, well, we don't have access to the whole hologram of time. Even that, though, presupposes that there is a me to judge, and there's not, because the ego doesn't exist. And so the only thing that's real is that pure non-judgmental present moment awareness, within which is an abstract, non-specific love. And everything else is a lie. So yeah, I really like when you say that judgment is thinking you know anything.
Right.
So
Which
I
isn't
think,
that, I don't know about you guys, and I'm talking, I guess, to you right now, Keith, is that the idea that we have coming into this, and for a long time, is this idea that we should know anything, and that
yes.
so often it comes up to, you know, I feel like, oh my God, I don't know how to do this, or I don't know. And then I went, oh, isn't this great news? I'm recognizing I don't know, as opposed to it being that something bad.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's like, oh
Absolutely.
no, I'm really onto something here.
Yeah.
I'm feeling like I don't know. This is a good thing.
I always call that, you know, there's a few things I think in the course that are like real super powerful weapons. And I don't know what anything's for is one of them, because it's just like pressing, you know, delete on your computer and the whole screen just goes blank. I just think that's what it is. It just, I don't know what anything for means everything in my mind is a lie. None of it is true. I can't trust any of it. And I'm willing to have something else be there. And the something else that's there is a stillness and a silence and a love and a peace that just can't help extending itself out into the world and to everyone in it.
It's what's true. I love the part in the course that the picture of your brother that you see means nothing. There's nothing to love, nothing to hate. There's nothing to attack or to deny. There's nothing to see as powerless as weak. See it as a wholly empty space. And that's kind of, it's like there. What you see there is literally nothing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you allow yourself, are willing, which is what the willingness is for, is being willing to allow it to be nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, because the nothing is not empty.
Right. So that cloud, which is me believing I know what's there, is blocking the awareness of that love's presence. And when I can let it be empty, the love's presence can come into my awareness and I can see what has always been there.
Yeah, because we are that love, but our activity of imagining ourselves to be a voice in their head that knows anything is veiling our identity as love from us.
Yeah.
So we're never not love. our identity is just veiled from us by the activity of thinking we know anything.
Right. The sun does not stop shining just because there's some clouds or you put on some dark glasses.
Absolutely.
It's like we put on these dark glasses and say, oh no, the sun's gone. It's like, no,
or it's a bit like it's a bit like if I have a psychotic break and I suddenly start believing I'm Macbeth.
Oh, that's
and
not
I'll go
normal.
round, yeah, and I'm going round going out, damn spot, and I believe I'm a murderer, and my wife has killed herself because of, you know, all these horrible things we did, and, you know, Macduff is coming after me, and I'm going around behaving like that in my life. I'm never actually Macbeth. I never stop being Keith. But
Right.
my activity of imagining myself to be Macbeth is temporarily veiling my true identity from me as Keith. But I've never been Macbeth.
Method actors.
Indeed. Indeed. So really, you know, there is no Keith or Jane. Like, what we are has never been Keith or Jane. It's just our activity of imagining ourselves to be Keith and Jane is veiling our identity as love from us.
And the experience of that is really mind-blowing. So if
yeah, and it has to be an experience. Yeah,
it's such a mind-blowing. It's
It
a real
is.
disorienting. You know, the one quite a while ago, I had this in meditation, prayer, whatever you want to call it. I was given this image of like if I walked into a dark room and I looked in the corner and saw this ominous intruder, and I became really afraid. It's like, oh my God, there's somebody here to hurt me or whatever. And then the light goes on and I see it was just a coat rack.
Mhm.
So I laugh. It was never an ominous intruder that changed into a coat rack.
That's
coat rack,
right.
the coat rack didn't have to be healed. The coat rack didn't have
Absolutely.
to change. The coat rack didn't have to do anything. It was always a coat rack. I just happened to believe for an instant because the room was dark, because I was looking through a glass darkly, that there was an ominous intruder there. And that's the return to laughter that, you know, Wapnick and, you know, so many talk about, and the Course talks about, is that we meet the tiny mad idea that there was ever a coat rack, an ominous intruder, with the truth that it's always been a coat rack, and then you laugh because it's funny.
Yeah. Absolutely, because everything is just images, and they mean nothing except whatever meaning we've projected onto them.
Right. Including coat.
Yeah, for sure. Eli, thanks a million for that. That was lovely, Jane. And Eli, have we anything else left in the chat, or are we done?
We have a few things in the chat. I was just scrolling up to the first one there. So we have Michelle. This is what she says. I had an experience about 35 years ago when I rolled a truck and had no fear as it was happening. I somehow knew I was watching the accident play out, and I knew that I could not be harmed. I was 20 years old and had no idea about the Course or anything like it. Since I did not know about forgiveness, the way the Course talks about it, how could this event lead me to have an experience of being aware that I was not in the movie?
Because you don't need the Course to create a right mind for yourself. Your right mind is always present, concurrently with your wrong mind. Awareness is always there in the background of the insane voice talking to itself. And I think there's two ways. I think, first of all, you have people who have a very sudden, dramatic explosion of an awakening, like for example, Byron Katie, and indeed Eckhart Tolle. And really what you have is you have such intense suffering going on in the wrong mind, in the ego mind, that the decision maker just makes a decision that goes, I'm done. And suddenly it's just gone. And suddenly just one day then there's no more identification with any insane voice talking in the mind. And there's just this awareness that's present in the mind. And so I think that can, you know, be the reason for those very dramatic awakenings, where, yeah, the decision maker just makes a decision that goes, I'm done. I can't do it anymore. I can't fathom any more of the suffering, and then it's done. Now, for most of us, we're going to have to chip away at it. But I think it's an explanation for those ones like Byron Katie or like Eckhart Tolle. Just the suffering is so intense, the decision maker just goes no, and makes that final irrevocable decision against being what's separate. But I think that we can have many experiences of that in life, whereby something really stressful is happening, and as a decision maker mind, we just kind of like go, can't be part of that, and step back into a safer place. So I think that's a very common experience. And again, I think again, the crucial understanding is that you've always had a right mind and a wrong mind, and there have always been times where something in nature will bring you back to your mind, and you just feel deeply emotionally touched and inspired and moved. I mean, everyone has those experiences in life. Well, that's the Holy Spirit. That's your right mind. You don't need the course for that. The beauty of the course is it tells you how to have that on demand, or at least to train yourself to be able to have it on demand, and to ultimately move yourself to having it as the only thing that's in your mind. But again, if we understand that our true nature is the sky, and our thoughts are the clouds that is obscuring our true nature from us, then in all of our lives, there are times when the clouds part. And it could be in a time of great danger or suffering, or it could be in a time of great beauty or love. And when the clouds part, you have this experience of expansiveness and stillness and peace and joy and love. And I think everyone has that, and we don't need the course for that, but the course gives us a great explanation as what it is. So I hope that makes sense. Where should we go next, Ela? We better keep moving. We're running late as usual.
As usual. Yes, we have Jacob. I'm not sure if I
Sure.
pronounced that correctly, but anyway, my question is about the experience of non-judgmental awareness of ego, that I sometimes have an impression that for do it properly, I have to allow the ego to manifest itself, which is almost on the contrary, of what I learned from my upbringing. So paradoxically, I am allowing me to be a healthy ego, to observe it without judgment. But I feel it is the intention to not to fight with it. Could be.
Yeah, we definitely don't want to fight our ego. We want to be the non-judgmental witness of it. Because if I'm fighting my ego or trying to fix my ego, I'm still the ego. If I'm trying to do anything, I'm still the ego, right? So the only thing I can do is let something in my mind that's not ego. And the way I do that is by looking at the ego without judging myself for it. It's quite important to get to a place where we look at the ego for what it is rather than the way we're setting it up, which is that, I have attacked Christ in me to identify as a separate self. And now I want somebody to love me, to protect me from my self-hatred for being a separate self. And now they are not behaving in the way that they should to protect me from how much I hate myself. And now I'm going to manipulate them and try to have them behave in the manner in which I need to do, in order to protect me from my self-hatred. So it's quite important that, when we were looking at the ego, that we're looking at the ego doing what it's doing, and not the way we're setting it up, which is like, after all I did for you, and I've been so loving for you, how could you do this to me? Because that's the way we're setting it up. But there's no truth in it whatsoever, because our special relationships are total getting mechanisms, and all we're doing is bartering. So I'm just giving an example of special relationships because that comes into it a lot. But, in the same way with our special hate relationships, because, okay, if we talk about both, we've covered the multitude. In my special hate relationships, I'm saying, well, you have tortured and murdered people, and you are a bad person, and I just think that you're awful, and I hope God punishes you. And really it's not necessarily fighting that in ourselves, but it's about looking at it and understanding that that is everything I believe about myself, having destroyed heaven, and I don't want to deal with it, and I'm seeing it in you. And in fact, as the one mind, we all created a world with murderers in it, so we could look at them and go, you're the guilty one, you're the evil one. And the whole purpose was so that we could stay separate selves, instead of accepting the Holy Spirit, protecting ourselves from the Holy Spirit, and staying separate selves. And we can do that by seeing the murderers outside of ourselves instead of inside of ourselves. So we definitely don't want to get into the idea that we're trying to fix the ego or fight the ego, because if we're doing that, we're still the ego. But if we're looking at our ego doing what it's doing with no judgment of it, then now there's a presence in our mind that's not ego. And again, in terms of not fighting your ego, I mean, it doesn't mean that you just give in to the impulse of thumping everyone on the street on the way to work. So we wouldn't quite be doing that. We wouldn't be giving ourselves a carte blanche, you know, which is like, I'm going to make everyone's life hell, but it's okay because I'm looking at it with Jesus. We don't want to quite do that either, right? But it's really, and more so than what our ego is doing, it's much more about what's going on the inside in our mind. But you're on the right track, because we don't want to fight our ego or try and fix it, but we do want to look at it for what it is rather than we're setting it up. So I hope that makes sense, Jacob. And anywhere else we have to go, Eli?
We have 2 more in the chat, and then we can call it a day, and you can go and have your dinner. Okay,
Perfect.
So I'm going to go to Shannon's first, because apparently I missed it earlier in the chat. So let's go there. She says, Keith, on a previous call, you had mentioned how when you experience the love of God will knock your socks off. Can you expand on that, or how the experience was for you?
Just take a few minutes to compose myself so I can actually
God's
so I don't
knocking your
just
socks off.
so I don't just look like a mess on screen, because as soon as you ask the question I go back to it. Okay, the first time it happened, and really every time since, but what struck me was that the experience is almost completely defined as gratitude. It's like, for me, it was like in my mind being on my knees, screaming, just going, thank God I've been wrong about everything I have ever thought or believed. And this love is all that's ever been real. So that's what it felt like for me. It was, and that's why the closest thing I can say to you about what it feels like is gratitude. That I have been wrong about everything. And I said that from the very first time I spoke about it, is that it was just that idea, I have been wrong about everything. And then it just feels like your heart's going to break open with a gratitude that's bigger than you can cope with. So anyway, that's my best attempt to put into words what cannot be put into words, but I think the closest word in the English language for that love is gratitude, that thank God I've been wrong about everything. Yeah.
All righty, I think we're done.
We're done. Everyone, thanks a million for your attention today, and all of your questions and all your participation. And thanks for everyone for making it. And I think people finally got the right time, because every time the time changes, it's like there's a tear in the space-time continuum in the group trying to work out what time it is in different time zones. So glad you all made it. Next week, I may have a problem with next week, which I will confirm in the group, but I have a stag weekend and different events lined up, which may prohibit me doing the group, but I'll confirm that during the week. I hope that wherever you are in the space-time continuum, and whatever time it is, I hope you have a wonderful Sunday and a wonderful week, and I look forward to interacting you in the group.
Thank you,
Thanks so
Keith.
much, Keith.
Thank you.
Love you all.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Keith.
Have a great week, everybody.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Keith.
Bye.
Thank you.